Everyone had a name for you growing up. Quiet, sensitive, shy. Teachers wrote it on report cards. Relatives said it at family dinners. Even your parents used it like it explained everything about you. And for a long time, you believed them. But here's what nobody said out loud. Shyness is something you're born with. What happened to you was something else entirely. There's a specific kind of child that adult psychologists recognize immediately. Not the loud one, not the difficult one. The one who learned, very early, to make themselves small. The one who stopped asking for things because asking felt dangerous. The one who watched how adults were feeling before deciding how to feel themselves. The one who became so good at being invisible that eventually they forgot they were even there. That child wasn't shy. That child was adapting to an environment where their emotional needs were consistently ignored. Psychologists call this emotional neglect. And unlike physical neglect, it leaves no visible marks, which is exactly what makes it so difficult to recognize, even decades later, even in yourself. Emotional neglect doesn't require a dramatic childhood. It doesn't require cruelty or abuse. It can happen in perfectly normal-looking homes, in families where nobody hit anyone, where the bills were paid and dinner was on the table. It happens in the quiet moments, when you cried and nobody came, when you were excited about something and the room stayed flat, when you tried to share how you felt and the conversation moved on like you hadn't spoken. It happens when a child learns, through repetition, that their inner world doesn't matter to the people who matter most to them. And when that lesson gets learned early enough, it doesn't feel like neglect. It just feels like who you are. Dr. Janice Webb, a psychologist who spent decades studying this pattern, describes it this way. Emotional neglect is defined not by what happened to you, but by what didn't happen. The comfort that wasn't offered. The curiosity about your feelings that was never shown. The simple question, how are you doing, that was never really meant. What makes this so difficult is that the absence of something is almost impossible to point to. You can't show someone a scar from a hug that never came. You can't trace the damage from words that were never said. But your nervous system remembers, even when your memory doesn't. Here's how it shows up in adults. And if this is you, I want you to pay attention. You apologize constantly. Not because you did something wrong, but because existing without justification feels unsafe. You struggle to identify what you actually feel. Someone asks how you are, and you genuinely don't know. You've spent so long monitoring other people's emotions that you lost track of your own. You're uncomfortable receiving care. When someone is kind to you, something in you doesn't trust it. You wait for it to be taken back. You assume there's a condition attached. You hold everything inside, not because you're strong, because you learned, early, that expressing needs leads to disappointment. And you've always assumed this was just your personality. Quiet, reserved, private, independent. But personality is what you're born with. These patterns are what you built to survive. There's a term in developmental psychology called the emotional thermostat. In healthy early environments, a parent acts as a regulator. When a child is overwhelmed, the parent's calm brings them back to center. When a child is frightened, the parent's presence signals safety. When a child is excited, the parent's engagement tells them their experience is real and worth having. This process, repeated thousands of times across childhood, teaches a child how to feel, how to process emotion, and most importantly, that their inner world is valid. When that process is missing, the child doesn't learn those things. They learn the opposite. That needs are burdens. That the safest strategy is to need nothing at all. And then that child grows up, and they wonder why intimacy feels terrifying, why they can't ask for help, why they always feel faintly like they're too much. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival strategy that worked perfectly when you were small and powerless, and costs you everything now that you're not. The child who made themselves invisible was protecting themselves the only way they knew how. They deserve nothing but compassion for that. But you are not that child anymore. Recognition is where this ends and something else begins. Not in a single moment, not with one video, but the moment you stop explaining your pain away with the word shy, the moment you call it what it actually was, something shifts. Because